Hello, except for no Ray today.
No, Ray.
So it's not Justice and Ray. It's Miss Kimberly Klein. Hello, Kimberly. And
Hello.
and we have special guest Jennifer, who works here with us at CarEdge. Hello, Jennifer. Anyone
Hello.
who's ever called in or one needed support has probably talked to Miss Jennifer, I guess they would.
That's your girl.
Yeah. And then my favorite guest we've ever had on the show, probably the best guest we've ever had, my sister Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Yay.
Oh,
Hi, Wendy. Wendy, it's so
Hi.
good to have you here. This is going to be
Thank you.
so much fun. And Justice, whoever does your music at the beginning of this show, fantastic. You should pay him
Yeah,
extra
I
because that is
I
great.
agree. They should get paid extra, and certainly the one that produced the show should get paid for picking that music and having that done.
It's
Uh,
awesome. It's awesome. So it's Justice and the ladies today.
that's right. And Phil says hello, Wendy.
Hello, Phil.
Um, so what we're talking about today is Wendy and I road tripped along with my aunt, our aunt, for
Aunt.
1,000 miles in 2 days. Is what we did.
Wow. A
So
thousand miles in 2 days. That's a
yeah,
lot, Justice. Let me
it
guess. Did you do it in an EV?
we did it in my Model 3. Yes, we did indeed.
And how'd that go? I'm really, really
Yeah.
interested to hear.
So we're going to talk about that today, and the ups and downs and goods and bads of it, and we'll let you and Jennifer quiz Wendy on her experience because everyone knows I have all my opinions and stuff, and I'm used to my car. I'm used to
Yeah.
the things that come with my car. So I thought bringing Wendy on, who correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy, but knew almost nothing about EVs and really didn't even care anything about them before coming out here and driving around with me.
Correct.
Mm.
Correct.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. And so I mean, really at the end of the show, the ultimate question is Wendy ready to buy an EV for herself?
Well, we have lots of questions because Wendy looked at a lot of EVs while she was out here. We went and test drove and sat and looked at all kinds of non-Tesla EVs.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we could save that for last, right? I'm just
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear about this trip. So where did you guys start? Where was your starting point?
Well, we started here in Sacramento,
Yep.
and it was two different trips. We'll call it two different trips
It was two different.
in those 2 days. Yeah. So it was
Okay.
basically 500 miles one day, and then 500 miles the next day.
Okay.
So we went up to Redding.
Redding, not
California,
Pennsylvania, California.
Redding, California, which is right next to the Oregon border.
Gotcha.
And then we came back, and then we went out to Santa Cruz, California, which
Okay.
is on the coast,
Nice.
and then back. And Igor says there's not that much of EVs in Boston. Is that true, Wendy? I think you had a similar
Yeah.
take on that.
Yep. Yep. I'm starting to see some. I'll probably start to notice more, as Robert says. Once you start to see them, you start to notice them a little bit more. But I was saying, when I was in California, I saw a lot more, and I contributed to a few things here in Massachusetts. One of them being our roads, was
Oh,
one.
interesting.
Yeah, we have a lot of potholes, unpaved roads, and not big highways as you guys do. A lot of long straight roads. We don't have that as much here. So I kind of contributed maybe that being part of maybe why I'm not seeing as many.
Yeah, and you had a comment about the size of your roads too, right?
Oh God, yeah. You guys have very wide roads, even just not your little side streets, but just your main road to get to, and ours are still only about maybe 4 lanes, two on each side, one way.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny to see everything so wide and open everywhere. where it's not like that here. We have a lot of one ways, a lot of smaller, narrow streets. So again, was wondering if that could be part of it, because that vehicle seems so good in a nice straight open highway type, drive, versus some of these like smaller streets. So I was wondering if that could be part of some of the decision making.
That's interesting. That's what we get for living in the northeast coast. We have a lot of old everything,
Yeah.
including people.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially people. Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta, apparently.
I do have a quick question for you all. Did you plan your trip out ahead of time? Meaning, did you know ahead of time where you would be charging?
We did not.
You
No.
just got in the
I
car and
mean,
went.
when we got into the car for our destination, obviously Tesla will tell you where to charge along your destination.
Once you're in the car,
Yeah.
though, you did
So,
not.
yeah, when
You
you-
didn't do any planning though outside of the Tesla ahead of
No.
time.
No,
Okay.
we just put in our destination, and then it'll tell you, hey, you got to stop here for X amount of time, and then continue on your destination.
How many stops did you have to make?
How many did we make on the way up to Reading? 2,
Maybe 2.
and then two on the way back. So, yeah, I mean, and they weren't for very long. I'll let you answer it, Wendy. You were.
Yeah, I mean, maybe 15 minutes at the most.
Really?
About 15 minutes. Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
well-
did you charge when you stopped, or you just stopped for snacks or something?
No, both.
Okay.
It was a dual stop.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But we only
Yeah.
got snacks because we were charging, or we wouldn't have needed to really probably grab anything. We would have just kept going.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I wasn't asking about potty breaks. How many potty breaks did you take?
Well, they tend to be the same. Like, right, if you're gonna
Yeah.
stop to charge anyway, you would pick up snacks, use the restroom, grab a drink, so we have to use the restroom again immediately, and then do it that way.
As one does.
So here's my question. In, I don't know, let's say a 67 Impala, how many stops would you have had to make for gas?
Well, what is the 67 Impala MPG?
Listen, that's technical things that I thought our producer would have,
Oh, sorry. So, so it gets 13 miles to the gallon.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I've got to see what
It's
size
almost
gallon tank there is. So, okay, at best it gets 13 miles a gallon. It's between 11 and 13.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what size tank it is. Keep asking questions. I'll look up.
Okay. Wendy, here's my question for you.
Okay.
Did Justice let you drive the
Yes.
Tesla?
Yep. Yeah.
And how did you like it?
Or, you know what? I think I would have to get used to. That threw me off was the braking system. I barely, and he had it. I know you can pre-program that, but I found that, I barely let go or touch, and it was like a little like. So like any new car, when you first get it, you have to kind of figure out the pressure of the pedals. That would be one of the things that would very quickly be one of the first things that I would have to learn to be able to drive that or feel comfortable enough with it, because it was very sharp. Yeah.
Interesting.
So we're all adults. We've all lived in the world of, taking, those over the road trips. Would you say that you enjoyed this more or less than previous road trips that you've taken based on the vehicle?
Based on the vehicle, not the amazing company you had.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll have to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to stop for gas or you're going to stop to charge. So really, I didn't, the only thing is maybe obviously gas, you're going to pump a little bit faster than you're going to charge. that would probably be the only difference. But besides that, no, it's the same trip. It's the same experience. I think the only difference is a little bit of the time, but obviously, as we know, it cost effective is completely a whole different, thing, because obviously the price of gas versus the charge of charging is a lot different. So that'd be obviously the only difference, and a little bit of the time, but a difference of what, 10 minutes? So maybe 20 minutes on each end of having to charge for that trip. Not too bad.
So Igor says, yeah, about 200 to 50 mile range on a full tank, which is exactly what I got. I got 300 combined. So yeah, on the highway. So it would be about 250, for an Impala. So you'd have to stop
Once. If you started with a full
yeah,
tank, you'd stop once.
stop once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
twice in the whole, or yeah, 2 to 3 times in the whole trip. We stopped 4 times in the whole trip. So
yeah. So score one for the Impala.
yeah, with
I,
one less stop.
I
Of
have
course, it cost me $40 to completely charge up for the whole 1,000 miles. Less
Yeah.
than
$40 for 1,000. Okay.
So a little less than $40.
Let's not talk
But
about
you
that.
don't have the 67 Impala experience though, Jennifer. I mean,
the
that's what they're
style.
missing, clearly. Yeah.
The style. Not to mention the fact that I think part of it's just listen. I love toasty buns as much as the next person. In fact, that's one of the things that I am excited about in this day and age, that you can push a button and your buns can be toasted at any time. The Impala does not have that, but it has style, class, and where gas stations are. You know what I mean? Would you ever? Here's my question for Wendy: if you had to do this without a Tesla Maven
Oh
with
my
you,
gosh, that's what
would
I
you
was
have been
just.
nervous
Yes.
at all?
Imagine yourself, Wendy, without Justice beside you. You're
Mhm.
doing this by yourself. Would you have had range anxiety in the slightest?
Yes. Just being new to it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just being completely new, and because it's really a whole different experience. And so that was the first time I ever did it, and I was alone without someone having complete knowledge on how to
Yeah.
pull up and really try to be smart about, thinking about how far you're driving and when you should fill up, and the importance of that. I would have been a lot more nervous if I didn't have Justice with me.
Jennifer,
Yeah,
would
and
you
I was
would Jennifer
to add
have
to
the
that,
same?
we did have an incident on the way back from Santa Cruz
Oh.
where somebody who was driving, I'm not going to say who was driving, but
Uh-huh.
one of us was driving and ignored the
Mhm.
GPS and went on a way that we just knew how to get back from Santa Cruz because we've done it our whole life. And I'm just saying, one of us lives in California and one barely lives here. So you can figure out who was driving.
Mm-hmm.
Ignore the GPS and ended up in a detour because they had closed down the highway for something. So I ended up in a 35-mile detour and bumper to bumper traffic the whole way.
It
So
happens sometimes,
things
Justin.
were
I
not,
mean,
things did not go as planned on the way back. And that added some time and some range anxiety, I think, in there.
Well,
interesting.
but think about this. One of the joys, okay, of driving, one of the joys of road tripping is, taking that route that you don't know, going down that road that you're like, man, maybe we've made this drive 5 times, never been down this road. That ability to kind of brave the frontier and explore. I'd
Yeah.
probably be okay taking a 67 Impala down a road I hadn't explored before. Maybe with a Tesla, I might be like, stick to the straight and narrow.
I think once you, as BTVS says here, uh, once you're in it, that most of that disappears. You would probably be perfectly okay, depending, just like on your ICE vehicle, how much fuel you had. Would you turn down that road you don't know if your gas light was on? Probably not, because you'd be stupid. to do that. So it just depends.
Yeah, but I can find a farmer with a freaking gas tank. You know what I mean? Kind of hard to find a farmer with a Tesla charging port.
You can find somewhere where
That's
you can
true.
plug in. I don't know if you know this, but plugs are everywhere. We have electricity that runs to almost everywhere now. I
Mm.
don't know about where you live. I mean, you live like out in BFE out there. So I don't know what that's like. And Kimberly's in West Virginia, so it's mainly trees. So, but out
Mountains,
here in
mountains and
where
trees. Yeah.
we're developed out here, and we're a modern Stone Age society, so we have electricity everywhere. So it's actually pretty easy to find.
And yet,
That's so
what
funny.
might take a 10 to 15-minute conversation with someone and a small red gas tank, um, if you're just plugging into a wall outlet with a three-prong charger, doesn't it take a lot longer to charge if it's not a
It does take a lot longer, and you would just really want to get just enough to get you to an actual real charger.
yeah, so you'd have to be like, hey, I'm here for supper. I might be like sleeping overnight and like, prepare a bed.
You got
I'm just
space in your
saying.
barn?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Good thoughts.
Mhm.
But now, Wendy, so you did say farmers.
Yep.
Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't.
I mean,
Did
the
it-
farmers do look like I grew up with farmers. They do have a 240 volt all over the place.
Yeah, but it still takes longer than a little red
Well,
gas tank.
that one's a lot quicker. It's not a fast charger, but it is definitely faster than a three-pronged outlet, which would take you forever.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Kimberly. Sorry.
I forget. I forget
Oh,
what I was
sorry.
going to say. I had a question for Wendy. So the first 500 miles of your trip, Wendy, and you guys stopped twice, right? During that first 500. Wendy said, yes, if Justice was not here with his knowledge and his presence, you would be a bit nervous, maybe have some range anxiety there. Does that mean, Wendy, that you would have planned your trip instead of just getting into the Tesla and letting Tesla tell you where the charging stations were? Or would you have, because whenever I looked at between my house and my son's, I'm like looking on the map first. Okay, where are those stations? Because yes, we're in the mountains, we're on the side of a hill, nothing but trees, and like you said, Wendy, those 4-lane, 2 on this side, 2 on this side. So I want to know ahead of time where those charging stations are. Would you be okay with just getting in and letting your car tell you, hey, there's a charging station here, there's one there on your trip?
My personality, yes.
Okay.
I don't know how much research I would do beforehand. I would probably rely on the product to be accurate to where these stations are and probably chance it. So the real answer would be, yeah, I would just wing it and hope for the best.
I love that. I love that, Wendy. I think maybe the three girls here were all the same. Yeah,
Mhm.
except for the EV. I don't know if I could just wing it. I had to plan that.
I will say that my
Yeah.
experience, with the 2 road trips were, it did seem that there were places to go. It didn't seem like we were unable to find one, or they were so far away that caused us anxiety. I felt like every time Robert, pulled up the closest ones, there were always ones so somewhat close by. Sorry, Justice.
Jackpot.
Yeah, there were. I mean, I will grant that we're in California.
I was just going to
So,
say, you're
like,
in
there-
another
there-
country over there, so it's
Yeah.
different.
we do have a lot more chargers, but I mean, I think the Inflation Reduction Act and the chargers that are being built there will help even that out. Because I agree with Wendy that we're always near a charger anywhere you're going in California. It's not really that big of a deal. You don't really have that, but I think Wendy would be fine too over in Boston. with that. But Kimberly might be a little bit in a different situation.
Well, what if Wendy was driving from Massachusetts down to West Virginia?
Yeah, what we drove was the equivalent from Boston to Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
So that was the equivalent of what we drove.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the funny thing is that now I'm going to be more observant now that I'm driving around here back home in Massachusetts. But I can't say that I have ever really even seen too many charging stations anywhere. So,
Uh-huh.
you know, I'd be very curious now. Excuse me. I'd be very curious now to be more observant to see where they are because I
Yeah.
haven't really noticed a lot of them.
But
Interesting.
I've got to ask you this, Wendy. You haven't noticed a lot of them, but to where you're sitting right now, where are the closest chargers to you?
Yes, but they're not Teslas. They are
No.
brand new. Yes, my building where I live, they just about 6 weeks ago put in 3 EV chargers. And
Ah.
yeah, so I was saying to Robert, like, okay, they must be coming this direction because for an apartment complex to start considering this for their tenants means
Mm-hmm.
more and more people are getting them.
Well, that brings up something very interesting then, Wendy. I want to know where they put those charging stations in. Behind the building, in front of the building, on the side of the building, and is it well lit?
On the side, but it's pretty much almost like the front of the building, and it's very well lit.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Okay. That's good.
yeah.
My question is who's going to be the person that just parks there all night? You know
Well,
what I mean?
they're supposed to be parked all night, right? They're for the residents, or are they public?
For
Igor
the
wants to know. What's that?
Hmm.
for the
Residents
rest
only?
only. Yep.
Okay.
So only 3 people can have EVs?
Yeah.
Well,
Mm.
But I guess
only
it's
3 people can be charging at a time. Yeah.
Well, if they're supposed to be parked there all night, though, wouldn't you want to plug in every night?
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, you don't have to plug in every night. You don't fill up your gas tank every night, but it is a perk if you can. I mean, let's not forget it's not a 40-mile range, right? It's a
Right.
250-mile range. So
Yeah.
you don't have to plug in every night. One of the advantages if you own a home or you're in a place that does have charging is that you can plug in every night, but it's
Right.
not a necessity. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that you have to do.
And the other
Gotcha.
thing here is you have to remember that we're very condensed small cities. So, you know, to get to a lot of things, we don't drive as many miles to get to things. So
Mm-hmm.
I think like let's say I had an EV and I felt, you know, was able to charge it, you know, pretty close to 100%, that could last me a very long time. Meaning, like, if I was guesstimating, I would say at least a week
Mm-hmm.
of just, you know, local driving. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you know our streets are so small and our cities are so close that
Right.
we wouldn't, at least for myself living in Boston, I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have kind of mileage. So a charge could last me a good decent of time.
Yeah, and then Sarah says plug share notes, lights, and amenities, and a better route planner, which I do use sometimes. Kimberly allows for search for amenities, so there you can search for some there. Uh, yeah, you don't have to charge every day, but you know if you can.
Is it gonna be like the guy that always hogs up the dryers, the washer and
Hmm.
dryer, you know?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it gonna be that person that takes advantage? Of course, there probably is, but
Yeah,
yes.
there's
clearly,
always going to be a-holes out there,
yeah.
no
Hmm.
matter what. Like, and it's not like it changes now, because I will tell you one of the popular things in some areas is people with the big diesel like Ram trucks
Mhm.
will go and park in front of several EV chargers. Just
Oh, that's
just
nasty,
Hmm.
yeah,
really?
just because that's the type of person. It doesn't EVs don't solve people being jerks. Um,
Wow.
at all. So it just That's kind of is what it is there.
If they could solve it though, Justice, yeah, I would be on board.
Oh
Then I
yeah,
would get
yeah, oh yeah,
if they
yeah.
could, I would definitely get an EV then if you could solve that issue.
If there was a button for like instant karma.
Yeah.
Like, but I'd want them to know that like it was me. So I'd want my car to like, I don't know, fluoresce or something as I slam the button. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. This is all very interesting. Of course, I want to ask Wendy, and I'll say this because Justice often will tell me, or he'll send me a message or something, say, "Hey, Kimberly, I'm sitting here, and I kind of thought about you because this isn't a great place. It's behind a building, or it's not well lit." So, do you have any, Wendy, concerns about that safety? I know that infrastructure is growing. They're putting more and more in, just like they did where you live. But if you're out and about, or if you take a trip, Wendy, would you be concerned about going behind a building somewhere to charge during your trip?
Yes, I did notice, and Justice and I talked about it a lot. It was more common for most of the charging stations to be in the back of something, or where some of these mall areas that at night, once the mall closes, I'd be a little bit more concerned with it being just a little bit darker and secluded by myself, because you
Yeah.
have to, it's not like you would pull up to a gas station and hope someone would pump your gas. You don't have to get out of your car, but here you do have to get in and out of your car. So some of the safety stuff, I am a little bit more concerned. Just, it didn't make sense. Why aren't some of them in a little bit better lit areas?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yes, the answer is yes. I would be thoughtful in where I would go fill, and part of it being my safety.
Yeah. And I think the main reason for that is because, they're trying to put them probably near or around gas stations, and they're an afterthought, like where do we have this space now? So yeah, unfortunately
Well,
they
I think
don't get
Wendy
front and
knows why
center.
they're put where they are, because I think we
Yep.
had this discussion a couple
Yeah,
times.
back by the electrical system, back by the main box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're put back, and we kind of observed this a lot, Kimberly, after thinking about all your comments. Where everywhere we noticed the Teslas in the back area, you could see the main power junction box for the strip mall right
Yeah.
next to that. So
Right.
it is where the amount of electricity that comes into the mall, and then they build the battery packs right next to that.
You
So
know,
I think that's a lot of times why they're in the back there.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's just not good enough for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, that's real convenient for you, Mr. Infrastructure Guy, but for me, I want you to make sure that the power is somewhere out front where it's well lit and I feel safer as a consumer.
And we found lots of those too, right, Wendy? Like we went to
Yeah.
lots that were in great areas, but
Oh,
some of them were indeed in those areas. And anytime we saw them behind a strip mall, that's what it was. They were right next to the power junction box. But a whole bunch of them we saw, like Whole Foods was right up next to the store. You were a few feet away from the front. A lot of Targets are up front. They're not putting them in the back. Somehow Walmart puts them in the back, but Target puts them in the front. So it's there are designs, and people are taking some of that into account. I think where we were going, where we saw them in the strip mall, because we didn't notice that up towards the Reading trip, right, Wendy? It was mainly the Santa Cruz trip we saw them behind the strip mall.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would be the Fremont area where Tesla was born. So sort of expanding out from there, it was more like those were some of the first ones ever built.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was when Tesla was still in its infancy and growing, out from that area. I think
Yeah.
that's where we saw most of that. And the new construction and newer ones we see are a lot in the front and more better lit areas, I think.
That makes me
Well,
feel better.
yeah, and to Kimberly's point, when you're stopping to get gas, not only are you usually under the weird rain thing and it's brightly lit and you get your gas there and you're on your way very quickly. In a Tesla, you have to get out and then sit in your car for a while you charge, where it just feels like you're kind of a sitting duck, sometimes.
Justice was sitting in the rain one day. I don't know if you were eating food or you were watching something and you kind of lost perspective of your
Yeah.
surroundings, where as women, we're always taught to always pay attention to your surroundings, no matter where you are. And you just kind of noticed yourself drifting off. That would be a sitting duck. To
Yeah.
Jennifer's point,
I,
that
w- I
would
was
be
watching YouTube while charging and realized, Wendy, I was in Woodland when I was charging. So a lot of our family's from Woodland, so she knows where it is. As I was sitting charging in the rain, never been there before, wasn't very well lit, and realized my doors were unlocked and I'm paying attention to YouTube and by myself. So yeah, I mean, but since then, thanks to Kimberly's comments, I don't do that anymore.
that's awesome.
I watch YouTube, but I lock the car
Uh-huh.
most of the
Yeah.
time. Like in the,
Yes.
so I'll be, but I also, I pay attention to where I'm charging and how far I have to go. So, I'm never really anywhere for more than 15 minutes. But my main charging station here, since I can't charge at home, is in a mall parking structure that is very well lit at all times, 24 hours a day. And they have security driving by all the time. So I don't think too much about that part of it, at least.
That's good.
Wendy, would you ever consider carrying with you, if you get an EV, which I have a feeling you might if you haven't already? Would you consider carrying like a can of whoop ass with you just in case? In your EV, would you would you carry any kind of mace or?
I don't think I would. I think that if I have to buy a car and then feel that I need to buy those type of
Yes.
things that I wouldn't normally do in an ICE vehicle, then I don't know if that would be the right car for me, because
Yes.
that wouldn't make any sense to me. So I don't think I would. I don't think I would. I wouldn't want to do that.
Well, and I will preface this too, saying Wendy's head comes up to my shoulders, so she's not a particularly large person. I would not fight her. So, just saying that she probably doesn't have to carry, because I don't think the other people would stand much of a chance.
Well,
So she would
that's
be
a
the
great.
wiener.
Yeah, she would.
Kimberly, I wanted to bring up one thing. We talk a lot about, women's safety, about like, or not women's safety, or just like concerns when women are thinking about buying this type of vehicle.
Yeah.
What are their concerns? But it
Yes.
also, and I think I brought this up to Justices, also, what about like the older population?
Absolutely.
They're too not going to be so quick to want to go behind, a dark place by themselves, because they're just as at risk as we are potentially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's women, but it's also, some of the older population might really struggle with this type of vehicle for some of those reasons as well.
Very interesting. And I will tell you that I did catch some heat for that show that we did, Justice, whenever I brought the whole safety thing up, because I was giving it as a point of view from a woman to other women. But many, many men out there made me realize, hey, Kimberly, it's not just women, okay? It's men too. It's everyone. But when
Everyone.
you break
So-
it down though, yes, there are demographics. Wendy, you just named one of them perfectly. The older generation could have a struggle with this as well. I wouldn't want my mom going to the back of a Walmart plugging in at dusk on a trip somewhere. I wouldn't want that for her.
Well, and I will say, Kimberly, the thing I noticed about the comments that I saw about the show when you were talking about women driving, and the men who responded the most, who said, hey, I care about my safety too, and I wouldn't do that. almost all of them, not all of them, but almost all of them were law enforcement or security personnel. These are people who are pretty well trained in how to carry themselves, but they're also trained in how to watch out and be careful and be aware of their surroundings. They were the ones who were like, no, like I wouldn't go there either. So that was an interesting sort of trend I saw
Yeah.
in those
Didn't know
comments
that.
too. Was okay. So the educated ones, the uneducated people like me are like, whatever. Who's gonna do it? Like I don't know. So if I'm ever found on the side of the road, my Tesla's stolen, you'll know how that happened. I wasn't paying any attention.
Watching YouTube in the rain.
Yeah,
Doors
right.
unlocked.
But before we fully wrap up, Wendy did test drive and look at several EVs while we're out, non-Tesla, because everyone who thinks I'm just a Tesla fanboy, we look at all of the EVs. I look at everything, and as Wendy had more questions about EVs as we drove around and she drove the car and stuff, I encouraged her to look at what else is out there and the differences. So, Wendy, what was your favorite and least favorite?
Yes, I'm dying to know.
Yes. So, all right. So let's recap which ones we saw. We went to see, and I will never know the exact.
I'll help you with the names.
A Kia, right?
The EV6.
So the EV6. We saw Cadillac.
Lyric.
Oh.
Yep. We saw the Ford.
Mach-E. Don't use the other M word because it's not one of those. It's just a Mach-E.
Right. It looks like it, but it's not. Was there one more? Oh, yes. We saw it was a Toyota.
No.
That one wasn't one? The Toyota car you showed me?
Oh, the Mirai. We did look at the Mirai, but we more or less just got out and mocked the Mirai. Yeah, we were just mocking the Mirai. I still love Toyota, but that car is just mockable. But we did see the Ioniq 5 as well at the country club. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We did see that. So I would say, very surprisingly, I think that Justise knew what answer I was probably going to have be my favorite, but going into it, I thought it would be my least favorite. It ended up being my favorite.
Interesting. Okay.
Was the Kia was my favorite.
Really?
And to be clear, Wendy, would you buy an ICE Kia?
Never. Never in life. I wouldn't even consider it ever.
So you're going into that car looking at it from a very anti-Kia point of view.
Correct.
Okay.
And least favorite, probably the Cadillac.
The Lyric, yeah. And why did you not like the Cadillac?
I think that for the price of the car, no, we did not drive it. But we were able to sit in it and just kind of take a look at it. It wasn't as comfortable. The seats weren't as comfortable. A lot of it was plastic on the inside.
Oh.
Plastic knobs, plastic stuff. So for a Cadillac, I was a bit surprised on the quality of the stuff, the inside of the car. That kind of turned me off a little bit.
Are you ready to buy one today?
If I was in a situation that I was going to buy one, I think I would do it. I would definitely am leaning towards that direction.
Does that mean that your next vehicle, whenever that may be, will be an EV, Wendy? Yes or no?
Yes.
Oh God.
Justise has turned her.
I
know. No. Did I ever push it on you?
No, I asked a lot of questions. I really tried to understand, what it was. Because honestly, like Justise said, going into it, even the very first time I got in the car,
Mm-hmm.
Was the first time I had ever been in one, and never even understood the full concept of what it was. I knew you charged it, but in my mind, I'm like, well, I thought you had to get your own charger. I mean, that's how simple it was. I thought that if you have the car, you had to have the house with your own charger, or you couldn't have one. That's kind of how
That's
basic
where you were coming
my
from.
thought process was on it.
Yeah.
Right, right. So I needed to have more information, and the more I learned, the more I liked.
That's awesome. So, if anybody out there wants to learn, they could just call Justice and go on a 1,000-mile trip with him.
Yeah, yeah. That's, I mean, I figured like Justice and I will set that up for,
Yeah, of course, of course.
We will
across
provide
Kansas, across Kansas, and then I want to see like where the charging points are.
We should look that up because you can look up
Yeah.
all the chargers on a better route planner, which I do use a lot, and to look up stuff, and you'll be surprised how many are out there. And Electrify America, the second largest charging network in America, yesterday announced that they will be adopting the North American Charging Standard, or commonly referred to as the Tesla plug. As more and more OEMs are switching over to that plug, Ford, GM, Rivian, whole bunch of people now. I know Hyundai's considering it. You can almost count Toyota will probably do it. So as more and more switching to those plugs, a lot of the stations are now starting to pick up that and say that they're going to be adopting those. So you'll have access to the Tesla network and the non-Tesla network eventually, and that will help a lot in the charging, where you're not just looking for one particular station. You can go anywhere. And that will help open up a lot. I mean, that'll almost double the network once everyone switches over there. So, I mean, without even talking about all the new building, which there are, 32,000 planned charging stations over the next 10 years. I mean, it's not next year. But
That's really cool. And back to the braking thing, Wendy, I've heard other people say the exact same thing about the whole braking system. So I would anticipate that may change over time as well. No, it won't.
So yeah, Mario's one of those. Our own Mario is one who does not like the regenerative braking. However, it is a major factor in the efficiency of the vehicle, because you're recouping so much energy each time with the regenerative braking. It really helps your efficiency and your range.
I know, but does it have to slam you like that, though?
Yeah, that's the regenerative part. I agree that it goes, but Wendy, you didn't feel a lot of times when I was driving, you didn't feel that slam of braking, right?
No, I felt it more only when I was driving. Probably because you're used to the pressure points, which again, you could get used to. Like any car, you drive someone else's car, it feels a little different. You got to get used to the pedals. So, that part of it would just take a little time, but it's very abrupt, and at first, and obviously, and I've been driving a long time, it still take me a minute to get used to that part of it.
Yeah, you do. I will say it takes you, some people say a couple hours, which is all it took me. But I would say within 2 days of owning the vehicle, you would be completely used to it. And you wouldn't really have much, because it's just about, you can use chill mode, but again, that really reduces your efficiency of the vehicle. And the Model 3 is the most efficient EV out there. And this is a good portion of why. I mean, there's lots of reasons why, there's software being the number one, but this is a good portion of why it is so efficient. And I think if you just get used to it, it's really good. And, Wendy was in the car with me. I don't brake that hard. The first day I got it, I lifted my foot off the accelerator, and I did it like I was in an ice car. And it braked harder than I would ever have braked in my entire life, unless I was in an accident. Like it was hard. You just, it was almost like being in an ice car and having it shift. But it was rough.
So it's what I'm hearing from you is it's a great way to test out your seatbelt. Or B, if you're anti-seatbelt, it's a great way to see how far like your head can go to the window. Like, yeah, fantastic. So just a couple of days of that and you're good to go.
I
So,
would say I coast. I know how to coast with regen braking, and I definitely do not brake as hard as other people who might or may not be on the screen when I'm coming up to stoplights. I'm a lot more gentle and a lot more space, so I know how to coast through stuff.
But we would do really well over here in the mountains, though. I mean, we're constant. It's all up, down, up, down. So every time we come down, we're recouping.
Well, yeah, and so Wendy and I experienced that, right? When we were coming out of Santa Cruz, we ended up at the bottom with more range than we started.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what I would see here in West Virginia with the mountains.
Yeah, we got about 3% more battery after a 20-minute drive than when we had started because of the regen braking. So, I mean, yes, we lost some going up the hills, but I don't think we lost 3% going up. I was not paying 100% attention to that, but we sure did notice when we came down that we ended up getting more range. So that, I think, in fairness to ICE vehicles, of course you get better when you're going downhill, you get better MPG and that. But I noticed some of these hills, because the Santa Cruz mountains are steep. They're real mountains. So they're pretty steep. And we saw a lot of ICE cars just hitting their brakes, trying to come down the mountain, which of course in those vehicles hurts your MPG, hurts your engine. And an EV, I didn't have to hit my brake. And I think it cornered pretty well in those tight spaces, right, Wendy? Somebody wouldn't let me turn on self-driving on those corners.
Come on, Wendy. Right, Wendy?
I'm not ready for any self-driving at all.
Wendy wants to live. Okay.
Yeah.
Wendy wants to live.
I wanted to get back home to Massachusetts.
Yeah, in one piece.
As one does.
This was so special, Justise, having not only your sister here with us, but her perspective.
Yeah.
This is not something you hear every day on YouTube. So I think this is a really special, and it is your 60th episode, if I'm correct.
It is the 60th episode, yeah.
But I think it's really special, and her perspective is just so needed. Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I thought her perspective is better than mine because I own it. Like I already own it, so clearly I'm already sold on it. So it was just. So any final thoughts before we go, Jennifer? You've been uncharacteristically quiet.
That's because she doesn't have the hand to push.
Yeah, like, you all have no idea how loud this girl is. And working with her is like working with a Riddler. She usually has, 1,000 questions an hour.
We love Jennifer.
I was going to say something on your side, Justise, until that moment. And now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I didn't say I don't love working with you.
No. I know secretly deep down in the bowels of your soul, you love working with me. But so here's what I was going to say on the issue of safety. Like, I've not been romanced by EV yet. I'm not sold. But I will say that I know that we think about, the safety of recharging, and it's a valid thing. There's unsafe things with ICE vehicles too. So you kind of we're used to it. We don't think about it. We don't pay attention to it because we're all grandfathered into it. But it's there. So, if ICE cars were new on the market, I'm sure we'd have a lot of questions about what if your engine blows? What if you run out of oil? What if you, those things, right? Radiators.
Which one is likely to more likely to catch fire, Jennifer?
Listen.
By a lot. Which one is more likely by a lot to catch fire?
Don't bring your research and your knowledge and your whatever into this. No. EV has not I won't. No.
Okay. Just Wendy, final thoughts?
No, but thank you for having me. This is really, like I said, so informative. I'm a little excited about it. I can't wait to share some of my knowledge with, people here, and kind of see when I might be getting my own.
Yay.
And you
And,
will
and
keep us apprised of that, right? We want to
Yeah.
know when Wendy gets her
Oh,
EV.
I'm sure Justice will pull me right back in.
oh yeah,
Yes.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course. I just want to say a special thank you for coming by, Wendy, who left California at 8 o'clock last night and has still not slept.
Oh, wow, Wendy. You go,
So
girl.
You're a
so
trooper.
she's on the air with us,
You are.
with a lot of not sleep. So
Oh, Wendy,
so
thank
thank
you
you
so
very much.
much.
Of
Well,
course.
Yes.
Kimberly will give you the last word.
I have learned an awful lot, and I'm still learning every single day, Justice, about EVs. I still won't do it if the government makes me do it. I still feel the pressure, not just from the government, but I still feel the pressure of get an EV. We're not going to sell ICE vehicles after the year 20, whatever. That ticks me off. That's pressure on me. And for that reason, I will not do it. Stop pressuring me.
So I know Ray, who's up in Canada now, probably just landed and is up there for the jazz festival. So hi,
Yep.
Ray, if you're watching, Ray and Zach. But he agrees with you. I agree with you. I love EVs, but I think they are good enough to stand on their own without the pressure of you gotta. And I will say that a lot of these are just proposals. There's not actual laws yet, but just the way it's being presented from government officials, I think is getting a lot of pushback where they don't need it. Like you just don't need that kind of thing. So I will agree with you on that. That I wish they would just allow them to stand on their own a bit more and come through. Because the
Reverse
pushback is not there.
psychology is
Yep.
a real thing. Okay. So if everybody would just back off, I think more and more people would naturally be more inquisitive and maybe buy EVs. So
Yep.
back off.
And I think Wendy would agree this. The other obstacle is education.
Yes,
The
Wendy.
education
Yeah.
of EVs.
Honestly, that's everything.
100%.
So
After the show, we'll be handing out Justice's private phone number. You can call him at any time. No, I'm just kidding.
I think Wendy knows, so she can go ahead and talk to anybody from the new point of view. So we'll give out Wendy's phone number out there.
No.
She doesn't do anything for a living, so she just sits around,
Oh, yeah.
works like 10 hours, I think, a week,
Right.
doing nothing.
Oh, gosh. This
You
was
know how
fun.
those nurses are, lazy, doing nothing.
Oh, yeah, those
So,
nurses.
yeah.
Those darn nurses.
So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Really appreciate it. Jennifer, Wendy, Kimberly, as always. And then we will not be back on Tuesday because Tuesday's the 4th of July and
That's right.
we're closed and I do not work on the 4th. So we will be back with Ray and I talking about something at some point on Wednesday. And then we're trying real hard to get Justin for next Friday. So hopefully we will get the return of Justin for EV news and less debate. Although this was not debating. So thank you for everyone for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have
May
a
the
great
4th
day.
be with you.